With the NFL draft less than 2 weeks away, I will tell you why the Chicago Bears, the Washington Commanders, the New England Patriots, the Denver Broncos, as well as the Minnesota Vikings should all be concerned. Want to find out how? Stay tuned to Gridiron Gab Pro Style Pre-Draft Edition. Welcome back, you guys. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Of course, this is the pre-draft edition with the draft less than 2 weeks away. And guys, we are going to do our first segment as the draft approaches on evaluations of these players. And of course, we're going to start with the most important position on the field. That's right, the quarterbacks. Well, there's 6 of them touted as possible first-round picks. And honestly, guys, there's only 3 of these guys that I like. And ironically enough, they have 2 of them have excellent mobility. And one of them is a pocket passer that is just absolutely extraordinary. And the other 3 are guys that, in my opinion, we've seen this story before. Bo Nix, to me, is a guy that has never proven himself. Reminds me a lot of what we just saw with Zach Wilson. Although I will say this, he was a lot more efficient at Oregon in a system, if you will. And, guys, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm not sure that 2 of these quarterbacks are going to be worth the reach that they're going to be. But let's break it down. Let's start with the number 6 guy on this list in Bo Nix, the quarterback out of Oregon. Now, most of you are going to look at the 77% completion percentage that he had and the over 4,500 yards that he was able to rack up and the 45 scores to 3 interceptions and say that, well, Bo Nix is worthy. He is worthy to be a first-round pick, and honestly, I will say this, in the right situation, he could possibly be a number 1 pick. I'm not just throwing that out there, but he needs a lot of players around him, and I'm not saying that all quarterbacks don't, but I will say Nix especially has to be in the right system, and he has to be in the right situation. And he's very instinctive. That's one of the positives that you hear about him. He's very instinctive and mobile. His mobility is probably the one thing that got lost when he was at Oregon because he did not do a lot of scrambling. He does have the ability to get it out quickly, which is a staple of the Oregon Duck offense. And you got people that believe he plays with vision. I, on the other hand, have not seen that all that well at Oregon. I remember the Bo Nix from Auburn, where he wasn't instinctive. He didn't make a lot of decisions based on accuracy of his throws, which he's had a lot of issues with. But you see in his scouting report, they say he's accurate. And I've seen a lot of throws this guy missed. Now, I will say there was one very impressive throw on a 4th down against Washington in the Pac-12 title game where he threaded the needle and it went for a touchdown. It was a beautiful throw. But, you know, those plays have to be consistent. Consistency in a ball going down the field has never been Bo Nix's game. He did make some really good throws in that Washington game. I was really impressed. And a lot of people will say, well, just give him a shot, you know. Well, I can't give a guy that is fluttering with his accuracy that kind of confidence. We've seen many quarterbacks over the last 3 years that have been given the vote of confidence. It just has not worked out. And he's one of those guys. I mean, he has the ability to make plays, and people say he has the ability to recognize coverage. Not sure about that one. I'm a guy that believes that Bo Nix, despite the extra year in college, he still has been unable to go to the next level. To me, he reminds me a lot of a Taysom Hill. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you can get him, I mean, he's not nearly as big. He's 6'2", 214, but I think with some weight room, he could become the next Taysom because he has that ability. But maybe in the right system, maybe the Denver Broncos go after this guy. I think he'd be a great fit in Sean Payton's system. Shut up! Understanding what his limitations are and possibly being able to work with Bo Nix in certain scenarios and being able to create an environment where he can be successful. But I wouldn't reach for him. You fucking idiot. Next on our list is going to be one of my favorites, if not my favorite, Michael Penix Jr. Now, the critics have a lot to say about Michael Penix, who also ran a sub 4.5 40. Very good. Shut up! Because most people had him clocked at about a 4.7. Penix completed 65% of his passes for over almost 5,000 yards and 36 scores and 11 interceptions, which I will throw in there. Penix's interceptions were really bad decisions. I would say more. I wouldn't even say bad decisions. I would say more like gutsy decisions. Just hey, let me throw the ball up here and see if my guy can go get it. And that was what I saw with Michael Penix Jr. Who cares? Now, there are a lot of people that are going out there saying that this guy needs to improve his accuracy and his mechanics. Well, he's a southpaw for one. So they would definitely, whichever team decides to take this guy, I still think he could be possibly a top 10 pick. Just looking what he did with Jalen Polk and Rome Odunze and those guys at Washington with the limited running game that they had. And the defense was okay. They had some guys on that team that were pretty good. He wasn't, Rome Odunze is going to be a top tier wide receiver at the next level. But you have to look at it from the standpoint, this is a guy that had to get him the football. Now, he didn't look good in the national title game, but, Michigan made a lot of guys look bad.
Who's badder than the Shogun?
Well, the talk is that Penix needs to improve his footwork at the next level. And a lot of people, they want to say vision is a problem for Penix, who either doesn't read his coverages or he doesn't read defensive cues, or he predetermines where he's going to put the football. Well, I don't know if you can predetermine when you're throwing almost for 5,000 yards. I mean, I think a lot of that's anticipation. I think anticipation and predetermination are kind of one and the same. The only difference is you make a decision predicated on what you're seeing as opposed to just saying, I'm going here. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that makes no sense. Well, a lot of quarterbacks already predetermined, like on a three-step slant, a three-step drop slant, you're already predetermined that's where the ball is going to go. Unless you got three guys blanketing him. So that kind of makes no sense at the next level.
You fucking idiot.
Why don't you explain it to me?
Penix does seemingly force the ball into certain situations. I don't say he doesn't demonstrate an ability to understand 7 and 8 step dropbacks in the coverage. I think it's just a situation where coaching
dumb shit
will dictate how successful he can be, because you need a running back, because Washington did not have a lot of that. Kalen DeBoer did not put a lot of situations out there where your running back is catching the football. And, of course, when you got dynamic players like Polk and Odunze, you just want to get them the football. And I get it. That's not an excuse. But for a guy to throw for 5,000 yards, it kind of reminds me of Graham Harrell years ago, the Texas Tech quarterback that didn't even get his opportunity. So I'm of the essence that maybe the one knock on Michael Penix that I can truly say that I have an issue with is going to be his body and durability. At this level, being 6'2", 216 is not a problem. He's going to have to bulk up, probably about put another 15 more pounds on that body. But he has 2 knee operations that are concerning. And that's going to be a situation that he is in his camp are going to have to work through. But I would say this, for a team like the Raiders or possibly the Vikings, whom could be interested in this guy, or even if you took him and put him in Sean Payton's offense. Oh, goodness gracious, this would be just absolutely fun to watch. And I would even throw in there the Giants.
What a dumbass. Is that your best?
But let's move on and talk about a quarterback whom I don't understand is getting this talk when all he was a game manager for a heavy run offense. That's all he was. I mean, now if you're putting J.J. McCarthy in Los Angeles with Jim Harbaugh, that's your guy. But they got Justin Herbert. To me, the talk about J.J. McCarthy being a Giant or the Vikings coming up to get him, or even the Patriots being patient with developing this guy, this makes no sense to me.
You can't handle the truth.
You're not going to take a guy this high. I mean, to me, it reminds me of a Malik Willis situation a couple of years ago. This is who J.J. McCarthy reminds me of, except the only difference is Malik Willis put up way bigger numbers and led a Liberty team that was pretty much...
Damn it! Say it! Dumb shit! Dumb shit! Dumb shit!
To a one-loss season when nobody talked about Liberty. And J.J. McCarthy took a team that was just one of the best in the last 5 years, arguably one of the best teams in the last 5 years. He threw 22 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and he picked up 3 rushing touchdowns. I don't, disrespect the fact that he's a good athlete. He's a good athlete at quarterback, but the problem is he does not anticipate well. I do question his vision because there's a lot of throws I've seen him miss and not even see. He's late throwing the football. Like, as I said earlier, his anticipation's a problem. That's going to be huge in the NFL. Your anticipation has to be on point. You could go from throwing a touchdown pass to throwing a pick six. It's just a matter of milliseconds. You getting the football out of there and understanding, and being able to diagnose what you're seeing on the defensive side. He has the ability. I even watched in the semifinal game. He missed 2 throws that were just easy throws behind guys. And I will say there were drops by Michigan receivers, but I would say the one guy that he reminds me of is Daniel Jones. And like I said, Daniel Jones does not look good. And I think the Giants are going to find out that they did a good thing by structuring his deal that they could get out of it. But to me, that's who he reminds me of. And then you got some people that compare him to Will Levis. And now, meanwhile, you guys know that I was not high on Will Levis. However, Will Levis had arm strength, major arm strength. And I will say this. He ain't worth doing that. Because his arm's not Will Levis style. It's not. And he had more talent around him than Will Levis did. And Will Levis was still able to be the deciding factor in whether Kentucky was going to have a good football team. And even with the Tennessee Titans drafting Levis where they did. To me, J.J. McCarthy should not go any higher than where Will Levis went last season. I'm sorry. Any team that reaches that high, and I will be back here doing this again for you. J.J. McCarthy is not a top 5, a top 10, or a top 15. Later that, he's not even a top 20. I would even venture to say he's not even a first-round quarterback. Malik Willis, if you looked at his ability, his was way better than J.J. McCarthy. Too many inabilities to read defenses and too many bad accuracy issues for J.J. McCarthy. Let us move to Drake May. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say May is a guy that he definitely hits the status of 6'4", with the 6'4", 223-pound physique. He completed 63% of his passes for 3,608 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he also had 9 rushing touchdowns. The thing you look at with Drake May is he's going to have to be in a situation where he's got a good offensive line. Now, we've had projections sending him as far as the number 1 pick all the way down to the number 10 pick. I will say this. Do I think Chicago could be a good fit? Possibly. But the thing about it is he has to be protected. And ultimately, for a lot of the mocks that I'm seeing now are projecting that the Bears could possibly take either an offensive tackle or one of those top wide receivers, which I think would be, you need to get an offensive lineman. But anyhow, looking at this and looking at it very carefully, Drake May is a guy that is going to have to go to a situation where he's going to be protected, because if he's not, he has happy feet. And I'm not saying that all quarterbacks not, but he does have the ability to scramble, as we know, with the 9 touchdowns. He can be lethal when given time. Reminds me a lot of, he gives me Will Levis vibes. But a lot of people say that his accuracy is the thing. And I'm looking at the 63% and I'm thinking, no. May was not very good in 2013. You know what he gives me? He gives me Sam Howell vibes. Don't believe me? I mean, look, this is why I would say, now don't get me wrong, Sam Howell's 6'1", and Drake May 6'4". Now, here's the issue that I have. You're looking at a guy for North Carolina, his freshman year, he threw for 36.41 at 61% completion percent. Then 2020, his sophomore year, he threw for 35.86 and a 68% completion percentage. And then he threw for 62.5, 3,056, 24 scores and 9. 38 2020 to 7 and 38 to 7 his freshman year. Now, here's the thing that gets me when people say, okay, we're going to go with Drake May. And especially if you're the Commanders. I said this, Commander fans, and I know a lot of you agreed with me on the show when I did your special on your off-season edition of Gridiron Gab. He was a guy that, in my opinion, needed another year. To me, you can't go with this. If you're the Commander, you can't even touch this, because to me, if it's like you got rid of Sam Howell just to go back and deal with Drake May. I get it. I do understand what you're gonna say. You only got 2 years, and then you got to deal with the 5th-year option thing. But the thing is, May hasn't showed me anything any different than Sam Howell. I mean, his arm strength is a little bit stronger, but you're talking about a guy who has had the same amount of guys around him. He does have that arm strength that you want to go down the field. I get it. He's got great touch on the ball, but then he's also showed at times his inability to understand what the defense is giving him as well. That's huge. If you decide to loft a pass up there around these NFL defensive backs, you're just riding your own grave if you do that. And he's did that at North Carolina several times. I mean, the North Carolina Tar Heels were in the national title race because of Drake May. Drake May threw himself out of the Heisman race. I mean, this is not something I'm making up. He did that. And I will say this. Do I think he could go to the right team? He could be successful? Absolutely. If he goes, and I will tell you this. You're going to hear this reoccurring theme with me, that I believe that if Drake May lands in the right position somewhere like Vegas, where he's got a superstar like Devontae Adams, he could make a huge world of difference. You got Michael Mayer there. So do I think if this guy falls, this could be a huge win for the Las Vegas Raiders? Absolutely. Absolutely. But do I think Chicago or the Commanders need to draft, or even New England, even Minnesota? That's a no-go. That's a no-go. And a lot of people are going to say, well, what's the difference between Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson? Well, Minnesota's got to get a running game. And I will agree, Oakland does need to get a running game, but I think they've got a good enough offensive line they can run the football. Let's move up to the big two. It's going to be the same thing like last year. Everybody's got Caleb Williams number one, kind of like with Bryce Young number one last year, and Jaden Daniels number two, and then C.J. Stroud. The only knock I can say about Jaden Daniels, he got to learn to slide. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about a small frame or his notion to miss open receivers? Listen, guys, I'm going to say it like this. With this talent, to me, he's more Patrick Mahomes-ish than Caleb Williams. And I'm going to explain to you why. Jaden Daniels is so, and I did not like this guy, even going into the Heisman. I honestly thought, and I had to catch myself. Marvin Harrison should have not even been in the argument for the Heisman, but I thought Michael Penix was going to win it, but of course that's who my favorite is, you guys. But Jaden Daniels, you can't argue the talent. You just cannot. The speed on the field, and you're seeing people talk about his being able to put up points like a cash register. Does that sound familiar? And watching the Alabama game was just so much fun. If you're a defensive guy and you're an SEC fan, too bad. SEC don't play defense like you claim. But anyway, that's not the point. That's neither here nor there. I'm going to go out on the limb and say this guy's probably going to surprise. I'm seeing, like I said, in these mock drafts that the Commanders are going to flip between Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Listen, if the Bears go and get Caleb Williams and the Commanders don't jump on this guy, I'm telling you right now, I have not done the show yet, but the Patriots are talking big time about wanting to move out of that position. Because I'm going to be honest with you. This is just what I think. I believe what's going to happen is you're going to see if the Patriots move out of this position for defer to either the Broncos or the Vikings, they're going to get Michael Penix. That's what I believe. That's what I believe the Patriots want to go. That's where I believe they want to go. But neither here nor there. The Commanders would be nuts to walk away from Jaden Daniels. I would even venture to say the Patriots wouldn't walk away from this guy. This guy could instantly change that franchise. Now, I will say this. They're going to have to reel him in as far as the running goes. We saw what happened with Anthony Richardson last year. But if they can get, and I will say, for instance, the Commanders is not a bad situation. Neither is, now the Patriots is a different situation. There's a lot that needs to be done there. But when you look at what he did last season, 38-12, 40 touchdowns, completed 72%. So those erratic accuracy issues that many of his critics talk about or analysis refer to, it's not very bad. It's 72%. That's better than Drake May. And it's not like Jaden Daniels is sitting here throwing short stuff either. Look at that, 38-12, 40 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions against some of the elite Ds in the country. He impressed, and I remember that Ole Miss game. That was the game everybody was talking trash about. He was even good in that Florida State game. I think people forget that game. He was very good in the loss. In a loss. So, in my opinion, this guy very well should be the number one guy. With his rare combination of athleticism and his ability to throw the football. But, however, whoever drafts him is going to have to get him some big receivers. Big, fast receivers. So, that's going to be probably on, I would venture to say the Commanders. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bears drafted him number one. But, let's go to the guy whom everybody is assuming the Chicago Bears are going to take. And that's Caleb Williams. Yeah, I mean, really the only negative to Caleb Williams' game was the Notre Dame-Utah game this season. He completed 69% of his passes for 36-33, 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and 3 of which were in the Notre Dame game. And basically where he just, I don't know if he just looked confused or he just didn't get a grip on it or what, but you saw Caleb Williams get flustered. And he had an ability to hold the football. So, and it showed. Xavier Watts for the Irish won the Bednarik Award and will be probably a top 20 pick next season when he comes out of Notre Dame. Go Irish. But there's no doubt that Williams is going to be a guy that's kind of like Russ, a lot like Russell Wilson in ways. He's got to learn to get the ball out of there faster. He's going to have to understand he's got to get the ball out. Even for a guy that in his footwork, and reminds me of Michael Penix, what the critics say, he needs work on his footwork. And a lot of what makes him such an enticing offer at the number 1 pick, even though it was down, is his deep ball accuracy. You love the fact that this guy can drop the bomb. And that's what you want in the NFL, especially if you're a team that wants to run the football and you've got so many weapons, such as the Bears have. The Bears, with Keenan Allen as well as DJ Moore, these guys are going to want to throw the ball to the field, and then Cole Kmet eating up the middle of the field. You're going to want to do that. But I will say this, if the Bears were to turn this thing around and go Jaden Daniels instead, and that leaves the Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury gets what he wants. It's possible. But I'm seeing the Bears are going to take him because he's got so many Patrick Mahomes-esque type qualities. He's very good in the open field, but ball security is an issue. He does like to hold that thing out. But with Caleb Williams, it's one of those things, you take the good with the bad. And I think ultimately, he, like Patrick Mahomes when he first came in, ball security at times was a problem. And you have to take the good with the bad. You can watch, and people will say, Mahomes makes mistakes with the football. Sometimes you have to accept that. It's just like the whole Brett Favre thing. The guy was so good, you don't want to restrict him by telling him, hey, you need to not do much of this. What you do is you get him disciplined. I love watching him. He's a boom pick and has the ability to be in line with Mahomes as one of those other great quarterbacks, along with C.J. Stroud. This is a guy that has the ability to do some serious damage in the NFL because of his ability to stretch plays, make plays, extend plays, and his scrambling ability. This is a guy that ran for 11 rushing touchdowns. So he's going to be a guy that is going to be a huge, huge nightmare for defenses if he lands in the right system. And the Bears are seemingly going in the right direction. Now they got to do is make that next pick, that ninth pick, offensive tackle. Guys, those are your 6 quarterbacks. And honestly, I would say that only 3 of these guys are round 1 material. 3. I would even venture to say 4. I would say 4, borderline 4. Michael Penix to me is still a first-round draft pick. Maybe not a high one. If you get one of these teams, and I think if New England gets an enticing deal, you could see them trade down and take Penix late in the first round. But looking at it right now, guys, I think Jaden Daniels is the top quarterback. Caleb Williams, number 2. And Michael Penix Jr. is number 3, along with Drake May. And then, of course, you got J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. And I would even argue that Bo Nix is a much better quarterback prospect than J.J. McCarthy. But those are your 6. And it would not surprise me, you guys, that all 6 of them went in the first round, depending upon how chaotic the first 3 picks are. It would not surprise me that 6 quarterbacks are taken in the first round. But as we know, the NFL draft is a touchy-feely type situation. You got to get a feel for everything, how everybody's drafting, how everybody's feeling, how everybody's perceiving the things, because you only get to do this once. And so that fear creeps in about who's going to be on the board, who's going to be left, and so on and so forth. Do you take the best player available, or do you take a player that you're needing so that you don't have to worry about losing them or somebody else gain them? But guys, go to my Facebook page at Gridiron Gab Pro Style and let me know what you think. Who should be the number 1 pick? And also, guys, leave me a message down in my comments. Let me know what you think about my comments and perspectives about the quarterbacks. If you think J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback, let me know. This is what this is about, conversation. Keep the conversation going. I will try to do another show on the quarterbacks based on your comments later on before the draft comes out. But until the next time, you guys, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms. For they are here, an army that has the will to challenge and the will